Fawzia's family was strong and growing when evil came calling. Almost 5 years ago, the Islamic State group arrived at their doorstep in Iraq and broke the family apart. As they tried to become whole again, Germany gave some of them refuge. Fawzia was taken by IS with her 4 children. Only her husband escaped the day that IS took Iraq's Sinjar. IS laid waste to Sinjar, but their darkest acts were kept for the Yazidis, a religious minority they viewed as infidels. Raped and enslaved, the UN called it a genocide. Not far from here, the men were taken away and killed. The women and children thought they would be next. Fawzia endured it all. Our kids were crying. Each hour IS would come and take the young women and the children from their mothers. We were forced to live in disgrace and humiliation. They treated us like sheep. They told me, "A man has bought you." I said, "I'd rather be killed than go with that man." Fawzia was bought and sold 6 times in Syria. 2 of her oldest children were taken from her. After a year of hell, freedom. Here in the pink, she's surrounded by her family at the Iraqi border. A deal was done, $20,000 ransom for her and 2 of her children. But it was a bittersweet moment. Her eldest son Nashat and daughter Jolene were still trapped in Syria with IS. They asked me to take off the black dress of IS. I still couldn't believe it. I thought it was another of their tricks. I said to myself, I've already lost 2 of my kids, but at least getting the 2 youngest boys out is a good thing. In March this year, 9-year-old Jolene was found. Safely now in Iraq, she tries to forget about the last 5 years of work, cruelty and forced prayer. She speaks rarely now. Again, a ransom was paid. If she'd have been a few years older, IS would have forced her to marry a fighter. But where was 11-year-old Nashat? He was still missing, still in the Islamic State group's grip. He was here, in the nightmare of Baghouz, where IS made the last stand of its doomed caliphate. IS stole his family and his childhood. They forced him to convert to Islam, but incredibly, he made it out alive. We found him in Syria. They would buy us children, no matter what the age, and make us servants, and buy women of any age and make them wives. They treated their children nicely, like a piece of gold, but they kicked us out at night to sleep in the garden or the sheepfold. I don't know why they would buy us if they didn't want to look after us. When the end came, it was a horror that no child should endure. I've never been inside Baghouz, but I've stood outside it when the fighting was going on. It looked really scary. Can you tell me what it was like? Bombing. There was only one day without bombing. A vehicle full of arms exploded, and other vehicles full of weapons exploded, at least 200. The cars and tents were full of weapons that night. Everywhere was red. In the morning, everything was burned. Houses and tents melted, and glass and iron too. Nashat is free, but still lost. He dreams of being reunited with his parents in Germany. He's missed them for nearly half his life. And today, his mum is coming to get him. Fawzia is travelling in the hope of bringing Nashat and Jolene back to Germany to be with the rest of the family. Thousands of miles away in Iraq, dressed in their best, they sit. It's been a long wait. So long, in fact, they have 2 brothers they've never met. so much stood in the way of this embrace. Together at last, they are a family that refuse to be beaten by terror and hate. Under the same roof again for the first time in years, they can finally sleep without fear. We all know the Islamic State group's crimes on the battlefield, but this is where it's really felt. They've tried to destroy this family. They've tried to wipe out the entire Yazidi people, but they didn't. They failed. The Islamic State group's on the run now, but the pain and the suffering that they've caused has been amplified for tens of thousands of families here in Iraq and in Syria too. And that's going to take generations to recover from. Countless other Yazidi families will never be reunited. This is a family that their country and the West failed to protect. Despite this, they endured, and that is another victory against the Islamic State group. Quentin, Sommerville, BBC News, Northern Iraq.